For the past 75 years, NATO has been protecting Europe, and NATO had America on its back. But now, after Donald Trump's arrival, everything is going to change. Donald Trump has openly said that America should be separated from NATO, because now there is no need for it. After Donald Trump's heated debate with Ukrainian President Zelensky, all European leaders have lost their sleep. Germany's new chancellor has also said that we need freedom from America, and NATO will end very soon. The million-dollar question is that if America is separated from NATO, will Europe be able to save itself from Russia? At a press conference when Trump asked UK Prime Minister whether the UK could fight against Russia without America, he had no answer but to laugh. Could you take on Russia by yourselves? Well, but can the UK, Germany, and France really not make such a strong army that they don't need America at all? The most important question is that what impact will leaving NATO have on America? For many years, America has been operating with NATO in other countries. Whether it's Afghanistan, Iraq, or even Libya, NATO forces have always supported America. So, if America is separated from NATO, is it so powerful that it can fight anyone alone? Another important question is that if America leaves NATO, will China not take advantage of it? Similarly, the entire strategy to take control of America's Arctic is dependent on NATO. What will happen to it after NATO breaks down? In today's video, we are going to talk about the downfall of the world's largest military alliance, a downfall that will change the entire world order. And maybe the world will reach the same stage as it was after World War II. First of all, let's understand how and why NATO was formed, and how did it become so dependent on America? Actually, Europe was very weak after World War II, and the Soviet Union was rapidly moving towards Europe. In this, to stop the Soviet Union, NATO was formed on April 4, 1949 in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or in short form. The only goal of this organization was that if there was an attack on any member country, then everyone would defend it together. America was leading this organization and giving it military leadership, nuclear protection, and financial support. During the Cold War, NATO became even more important, and America started building its permanent military bases in West Germany, Italy, and the UK to protect itself from the Soviet Union. As time passed, many European countries reduced their military spending and started relying on American protection. When the Soviet Union broke down in 1991, many people thought that NATO was no longer needed, but NATO started expanding instead of breaking down. Basically, many Eastern European countries that were previously under Soviet control also wanted to join NATO now. They were afraid that Russia might take over them again. And then, in 1999, the joining of the NATO of Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic brought NATO closer to Russia. By 2004, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and many other countries also became members of NATO, and NATO reached the borders of Russia. This was a direct threat to Russia, and it accused the West that they had promised that they would not expand NATO after the Cold War. Despite this accusation, NATO promised Ukraine and Georgia in 2008 that they could also join NATO in the future. Seeing NATO so close, Russia got very angry and attacked Ukraine on a full scale in February 2022. This war completely changed NATO's role. Now NATO was not just a defensive alliance, but it was directly supplying weapons and money to Ukraine in this war. And this had become the biggest conflict in NATO's history. Now NATO, despite being so powerful and big, is heavily dependent on American leadership, military funding, and strength. For the context, in 2023, 70% of NATO's total defense budget was America's, making it the largest financial supporter of the alliance. Many European countries, such as Germany and France, had already reduced their military budgets after the Cold War so that America could at least protect them. Now, America not only funds, but also has a proper military presence in Europe. According to the 2023 stats, America has 100,000 soldiers in NATO countries, and in Germany, Italy, Poland, and the UK, America also has permanent bases.
Similarly, America also supplies state-of-the-art weapons to NATO countries. These include advanced missile defense systems like Patriot and Aegis Ashore, which protect European countries from potential missile attacks. Similarly, America also supplies military jets like F-25, F-16, and F-15 to NATO countries. Speaking of nuclear support, according to some experts, America's 100 nuclear bombs are in NATO countries such as Germany, Belgium, Italy, Netherlands, and Turkey. Similarly, America's spy satellites and drones help the NATO army to track enemy movements and intercept their communications. But now, after Donald Trump becomes president, a big change is about to come. Because Donald Trump has criticized NATO many times, and he has accused European countries that they do not contribute their share. Trump has recently said that if NATO countries do not increase their military spending, that America will no longer defend them, and maybe they will leave NATO too. And if America is separated from NATO, then NATO's 70% defense spending will end. And with this, NATO will also have to get rid of American nuclear bombs and highly trained soldiers and weapons who had protected it for many years. So if we take out America's defense spending and only look at Europe's defense spending, then in 2024, the total defense spending of Europe was $457 billion. However, if we calculate Russia's defense spending after taking into account purchasing power parity, then Russia's defense budget is $461.6 billion. So this is the first time that Russia is spending more on its military than Europe. And the most important thing is that the Russian army follows a single command and language, while the European armies are divided into many commanders and languages. So, similarly, in order to meet the shortage of 100,000 American troops, Europe will have to increase its military power a lot. At least 50 brigades will have to be added, which will include thousands of tanks, armored vehicles, and artillery. Now, on paper, Europe has about 1.5 million soldiers, which is a huge number. But the actual reality is very different. These troops are divided in 28 countries that follow their own separate leadership and command structure. So this army has no unified strategy or plan. Every country has its own weapons and its own chain of command. That's why America's 100,000 troops are more powerful than Europe's 1.4 million troops, because they follow a single command and strategy. Another example of this logistic gap is that if Russia attacks the Baltic, then NATO would need 1,400 tanks, 2,000 vehicles, and 700 artillery units to stop Russia. And this number is so big that France, Germany, Italy, and the UK can't make such a big force together. Similarly, if America eliminates its 6 nuclear bases in Europe, then Europe will become vulnerable. This is why French President Macron and Germany's new Chancellor Friedrich Merz are considering increasing nuclear capabilities together. And there is a possibility that France's nuclear bombs will be stored in Germany so that it becomes a European nuclear shield that America does not need. But it takes a lot of time to build nuclear facilities, and in the short term, Europe can't replace the security from America. If NATO wants to replace America, it will have to make a special European army, but this would require years of investment, political agreements, and structural reforms. Now, let's talk about what will happen to America if NATO is left. America has been using NATO as a tool for the past 76 years and has been projecting its military power all over the world through it, whether it's the Afghan War, the Iraq War, or even the Libya War. NATO forces have always supported America. NATO has shared the burden of these wars with each other through its troops, air support, and logistics. If America leaves NATO, it will not even get Europe's support in the future wars. And this was a big support. Like the UK, Germany, and France in the Afghan War had supplied their thousands of troops and weapons. If America fought that war alone, it would need a lot of its troops and money. NATO has another big advantage. It is the network of military bases and supply routes that is spread all over Europe and the Middle East. For now, America relies on NATO bases in Germany, Italy, Turkey, and the UK so that it can deploy its troops there, launch air missions, and deliver weapons to war zones. For example, in Germany, the Ramstein Air Base is very important for the U.S. military to operate in the Middle East and Africa. Similarly, in Turkey, the Incirlik airbase has been very important for airstrikes in Syria and Iraq. If America leaves NATO, it will lose access to these bases, which will make it more difficult, expensive, and time-taking to carry out military operations in the future. Now, the way America can send its troops anywhere quickly through NATO, then it will have to rely only on its bases, or it will have to make different agreements with each country, which will not only be time-taking, but it will also require political bargaining. Look, wars are not won by military power alone, but a big war can be won only by good strategy, the support of other countries, and coordinated efforts. So, without NATO, America will be powerful, but it will have to bear all the burden of global conflicts alone. And this is where America's Arctic strategy comes into the picture. If NATO becomes weak or ends in the era of Donald Trump, then the most critical battlefront for America will be the Arctic. The Arctic is rapidly becoming an important area where Russia and China are very aggressively increasing their presence.
Similarly, if NATO ends, another loss for America will be that Europe will have to find another superpower for its security. And this is where China comes into the picture. If America leaves NATO, China can offer security to European countries and build strong economic and military relations with them. Now, historically, Europe has always been with the West, but China has invested billions of dollars in Europe in recent years, especially in its industry, infrastructure, and technology. Similarly, through the Belt and Road Initiative, China has invested a lot in European countries, through which highways, railways, ports, and energy projects are being funded. China has the highest investment in countries like Italy, Greece, and Hungary. In fact, China has bought a majority stake in Greece's Piraeus port, and this port is one of Europe's busiest ports. In addition, China's increasing investment in Germany's car industry and tech startups is also concerning for many analysts, because in their opinion, this is making Europe dependent on Beijing's investment. So if NATO is weak, China can use its economic power to put political pressure on European countries and force them to cooperate with it. Similarly, China already has a strong alliance with Russia, and if America steps back from NATO, Moscow and Beijing will come even closer. And the result can be a new world order in which China and Russia, while controlling Europe, can also make their dominance in the Middle East, Africa, and the Arctic. So if America steps away from NATO, it will not only make Europe vulnerable, but it will also give China a chance to take over global security. So one thing is very clear, that it is not so easy for America to leave NATO, because it can have very serious consequences. Trump may say that NATO is a burden on America, but the reality is that without NATO, America's military power and global influence are incomplete. Similarly, Europe cannot replace America in the short run. Its army is divided, its nuclear capability is limited, and it does not have the military strength that America has. So if NATO ends, it will not only be the downfall of the world's most powerful military alliance, but it will also be the beginning of a new world order. That's it for today. If you like the video, then don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.